A large order of 300 cookies was ordered from my website 2 days ago. I'll be sharing the process on how I fulfill an order this size and also giving you some details about the order itself. Typically, large corporate orders are either placed through the phone or email. However, this company ordered through my website, which is fine, but I didn't get to find out who they were or what they do. So I ended up doing my own research, and they are a company in New Zealand called Phonic, and they create hearing solutions and hearing aids. All 300 cookies were to have the same phrase, which was acoustically optimized cookie. They chose a circle cookie with green icing. To get started, I first needed to bake all 300 cookies. For an order this size, preparation is everything. The dough is rolled out to an even thickness before each cookie is cut, making sure all cookies bake consistently and look uniform. This is another one of the reasons why I bake in small batches so that I can check quality and make sure that they are the same thickness and are consistent. I roll out the dough in batches and cut each cookie individually before placing them onto trays ready for the oven. It doesn't seem like much at first, but when you're making 300 cookies, the trays add up very quickly. Once the trays are full, I place them inside the oven for 10 to 15 minutes and bake them until they are golden brown. After baking, the cookies are placed on a wire rack and they need plenty of time to cool completely. This is one of those steps that can't be rushed because if the cookies are still warm when decorating, the fondant won't sit properly and the finished results won't be as clean. While the cookies are cooling, I move on to preparing the fondant colors for the order. This is actually one of my favorite parts because it's where the designs really start coming to life. For larger orders like this, I need quite a bit of fondant, so I make sure there's enough of each color before I start decorating. For this order, I only needed one color, but it was a specific kind of green, so I had to make sure I had enough of that color before I started the decorating. By this point, the cookies have cooled completely, the fondant colors are prepared, and everything is ready for the next stage of the order. I start by laying all the cookies out on the table, and I get the sugar syrup ready, which is going to be used to put on top of the cookies to paste the fondant. A lot of people only see the finished cookie, but there's actually a lot of preparation that happens before a single decoration goes onto a cookie. After all that preparation, it's finally time to start turning these plain cookies into 300 custom phrase cookies. So with 300 cookies baked, it's time to start the customization process. The first step is rolling out the fondant. Since the order has 300 cookies, I need to work in batches to make sure the fondant stays fresh and doesn't dry out while I'm working. I roll the fondant out to an even thickness so that every cookie has a consistent look. Before I put the fondant on the cookies, I use my hands to knead it a little bit. The warmth from my hands will actually warm it up and make it a little bit more softer and easier to work with. Then, once the fondant feels soft and workable, I start rolling it out. For an order this size, consistency is really important because I want every cookie to look as uniform as possible, so I try to keep the fondant at the same thickness throughout the entire batch. Rolling fondant for hundreds of cookies is definitely one of the more time-consuming parts of the process. It involves a lot of rolling, lifting, turning, and checking to make sure it isn't sticking to the bench. The worst part about fondant is that it pretty much is just sugar, and so depending on the temperature of the room that you're inside, it can stick quite easily to the bench, and if it does, it ruins the whole rolled out batch that you did. And so to help with that, I add extra powdered sugar, but sometimes you just can't control it. Like in New Zealand, our summers are pretty brutal, and so it's bound to happen. After the fondant is rolled out, I start cutting out the shapes. For this order, they only wanted one shape, which was circles, so it made things a whole lot easier. And then the final step is to put the cookies inside their individual packaging. I work through them one at a time, carefully sliding each cookie into the bag and making sure the design is facing the right direction. This might seem like a simple step, but when you've got 300 cookies to package, it takes quite a bit of time. I also need to be careful not to smudge any of the phrases or damage any of the cookie while handling them. Once the cookie is sitting neatly inside the bag, I move on to the heat sealing process. I position the top of the bag in the heat sealer and press it down for a few seconds to create a secure seal. And then it's on to the next cookie, and I just repeat the process until all cookies are bagged and sealed. After a while, you definitely start getting into a rhythm. One cookie goes in a bag, the next gets heat sealed, and before you know it, you have stacks of cookies sitting next to you. One thing I love about this stage is seeing the cookies transform from individual pieces into a completed order. Every bagged and sealed cookie is one step closer to being finished. As the stacks of packaging grows, it becomes easier to see how big the order actually is. I also find the packaging stage extremely satisfying. It's the moment where all the individual steps come together and you can finally see the completed order. Looking back at the footage from the start of this video, it's hard to believe these cookies began as simple balls of dough. Every cookie has been made, decorated, packaged by hand, which makes seeing the finished result even more rewarding. Now all that's left to do is pack them into their boxes, get them ready for collection, and send them off to the client. I had to put all the cookies inside one box, which was great, but I do get worried about the weight of the cookie because you're stacking 300 cookies on top of each other. And yeah, you just don't want any cookies to break. But this method seems to be working because I've shipped off multiple cookies to addresses like Christchurch and Wellington, which are miles away from Auckland. And yeah, I haven't had any complaints, so I'm really happy about that. Once everything is packed up, I do one final check to make sure the quality is good and that all the cookies are accounted for before I seal the box up. With the order packed up and ready to go, it's time to carry everything downstairs. Moving a corporate order of this size definitely counts as a workout, especially when the boxes are full and ready to be dispatched. So finally, I print the courier label, attach them to the box, and make sure everything is ready for collection. At this point, all that's left to do is wait for the courier to arrive. Thankfully, the courier knows where I keep my parcels, so I just take it down to the collection spot. And I'm not gonna lie, this box was so heavy, my back was completely arched just trying to carry it down. But thank you so much for coming along while I complete this 300 corporate order, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.